Nelson Davis was 40 years old, and 3 days ago, his wife of 12 years handed him a legal document and asked him to sign away their marriage as he knew it. The document was a post-nuptial agreement, 53 pages of legal language that would restructure everything they'd built together. What Christina didn't know was that her lawyer had just discovered something that would change everything. And Nelson was about to find out why his wife suddenly needed legal protection from him. Before we continue, pause for a second. I want to hear from you. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what's happening in your world right now. I genuinely care about getting to know the incredible people listening to my stories. So drop a comment, let's chat. And while you're at it, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Now back to the story. It started on a Tuesday evening in April 2025. Nelson had just gotten home from his job as a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech firm in Seattle, loosening his tie as he walked through the door of their comfortable split-level home in Kirkland. The smell of dinner wasn't in the air. Christina's laptop was closed on the kitchen table, unusual for someone who typically worked until he got home. Their 2 kids, Sophia and Marcus, were at her mother's house for the night. Also unusual. Nelson, Christina said from the living room. Her voice had that careful quality that made his stomach tighten. We need to talk. Can you sit down? He found her on the couch, a manila folder in her lap. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes he hadn't noticed that morning. Or maybe he had stopped noticing. When had that happened? What's going on? He asked, sitting across from her in the armchair. Not next to her. The distance felt intentional on both sides. Christina opened the folder and pulled out a thick document. I need you to sign this. Nelson took it, confused. The header read, Post-nuptial agreement. A post-nup? Christina, what is this about? It's for protection, she said, not meeting his eyes. Legal protection. For both of us. Protection from what? We've been married 12 years. Why would we need this now? Christina's hands twisted in her lap. Things changed, Nelson. I've been building my freelance business, and it's doing really well. Better than I expected. My lawyer said. Your lawyer. Nelson interrupted. You talked to a lawyer before talking to me? I had to understand my options. Her voice was defensive now. Nelson, I make more than you now. Significantly more. And my mother thinks we should have had a prenup from the beginning. This just corrects that. The words hit him like cold water. You make more than me? Since when? My freelance income hit 180 last year. Nelson stared at her. He made $85,000 as a marketing manager. She'd nearly doubled his salary, and he'd had no idea. How did I not know that? I have separate accounts for the business. It's standard practice. Standard practice is also called communication, Nelson said, flipping through the document. The legal language swam before his eyes, but certain phrases jumped out. Separate property designations, limited spousal support. No claim to business holdings or future earnings. This says, if we divorce, I get nothing from your business. Nothing you've earned since we got married. And you keep everything you've earned, Christina said quickly. It protects both of us. But I don't have anything to protect. We've had joint accounts our entire marriage. We bought this house together. We made decisions together. He looked up at her. At least I thought we did. Christina stood up, pacing to the window. Nelson, please don't make this dramatic. This is just smart. Practical. Successful people do this. Successful people, Nelson repeated. Is that what you are now? Too successful to be married to a marketing manager. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? His voice rose despite his effort to stay calm. Because from here it looks like you've been hiding money, keeping secrets, and now you want legal protection from your own husband. Christina, are you planning to leave me? She turned, and for a moment, something cracked in her careful composure. No, this is just, I need you to trust me. Trust you. Nelson stood up. You just told me you make twice what I make, have been keeping separate accounts I didn't know about, hired a lawyer without telling me, and now want me to sign away any claim to what you call your success. That's not how trust works. The silence stretched between them. I'm going to stay at my mother's tonight, Christina finally said. Take some time to review the document. Talk to a lawyer if you want. But Nelson, I need you to sign this. Why? Why now after 12 years? Christina grabbed her purse and keys. Because if you don't, we could lose everything. She left before he could ask what that meant. Nelson couldn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table until 3 in the morning, reading and rereading the post-nuptial agreement. The terms weren't just protective, they were one-sided. If they divorced, Christina would keep her business, all earnings from it, and any assets purchased with those earnings. Nelson would keep his salary and whatever was in their joint account, which amounted to maybe $30,000. 12 years of marriage, and he'd walk away with $30,000 while she kept everything. He thought about their financial journey. They'd started with nothing. 2 kids fresh out of college, working entry-level jobs, sharing a tiny apartment in the university district. They'd scrimp and save for the down payment on this house. They'd weathered his job changes, her decision to go freelance, the birth of their 2 kids. Every decision had been joint, or so he thought. But when had Christina's business taken off? He tried to remember. 2 years ago, she'd gotten a big client, some tech startup that needed rebranding. She'd been excited, working late nights. Then more clients came. She'd hired a contractor to help with overflow work. She'd started going to networking events, industry conferences. And she'd started being secretive about her phone, taking calls in the other room, checking email obsessively. He'd assumed it was just work stress. Around the same time, she'd upgraded her wardrobe. New laptop, new car. A sleek Audi, she'd said, was a business expense. She'd explained it all as necessary for client perception. He'd been supportive, proud even. But when had they stopped talking about money? When had our income become my business? Nelson pulled out his laptop and did something he'd never done before. He looked up Christina's business. Christina Davis Design, LLC. The website was professional, impressive. Her client list included 3 major Seattle tech companies, a national retail chain, and several startups. Her Instagram showed a carefully curated brand. Sophisticated, successful, in demand. There was something else, too. A post from 6 months ago about exciting new ventures and grateful for my business partner. Business partner? Christina had never mentioned a partner. Nelson clicked through to the tagged account. Marcus Chun, tech entrepreneur according to his bio. Recently divorced. His feed showed photos from startup conferences, networking events, and Nelson's stomach dropped. Several photos with Christina. At conferences. At dinner. At what looked like a celebratory champagne toast. The photos weren't inappropriate, but they were intimate in a way that made Nelson's hands shake. He picked up his phone. It was 3:47 a.m., but he didn't care. He searched for Family Lawyer Seattle and found a firm with good reviews. He'd call them first thing in the morning. He wouldn't sign anything until he understood what was really happening. James Rodriguez's law office overlooked Elliott Bay from the 32nd floor of a downtown high-rise. The lawyer himself was in his mid-50s, with steel gray hair and the calm, analytical demeanor of someone who'd seen every kind of marriage disaster. Mr. Davis, James said, after reviewing the post-nuptial agreement. This is highly unusual. That's what I thought, Nelson said. No, I mean the timing is unusual. The terms are actually fairly standard for high-income earners trying to protect assets. but requesting this after 12 years of marriage, out of nowhere. James set down the document. In my 25 years of practice, when a spouse suddenly requests a postnup, they're either protecting assets from you or protecting assets from someone else. What do you mean, someone else? Has your wife come into family money recently? An inheritance? Large gift from parents? Not that I know of. Any health diagnoses? Sometimes people restructure assets before major medical expenses. She seems healthy. James leaned back in his chair. Any signs of infidelity? Nelson pulled out his phone and showed James the Instagram photos. I found these last night. Marcus Chun. She never mentioned having a business partner. James studied the photos carefully. These don't prove anything definitive, but combined with the sudden post-nup request and secret income. He handed back the phone. Mr. Davis, I need to ask you something important. Does your wife know you're here? No. Good. Before you sign anything, I recommend we do some due diligence. With your permission, as her spouse, I can pull business filings, check public records. Something doesn't add up here. People don't restructure 12-year marriages on a whim. There's a reason for the timing. Nelson felt sick. You think she's leaving me, having an affair, and trying to protect her money before filing for divorce. It's one possibility, James said carefully. But there are others. Let me do some research. Give me 2 days. Then we'll know what we're really dealing with. Over the next 48 hours, Nelson felt like he was living in a spy thriller. He went to work, picked the kids from school, made dinner, helped with homework, all while his marriage crumbled beneath the surface of normal life. Christina came home that first night, sleeping in the guest room. They moved around each other like strangers, communicating only about logistics. Sophia's soccer practice. Marcus's dentist appointment. Who would pick up groceries? Have you thought about the agreement? Christina asked on the second morning. I'm reviewing it with a lawyer, Nelson said. Her face went pale. You hired a lawyer? You did. Nelson, please. Just sign it. We don't need lawyers making this complicated. It's already complicated. You made it complicated when you hid a business partner and a 6-figure income from me. Christina grabbed her car keys. I'm protecting us. Why can't you see that? Protecting us from what? But she left without answering. That afternoon, James called. Mr. Davis, can you come to my office? Now. I found something. 20 minutes later, Nelson sat across from James, whose desk was covered with printouts and documents. Your wife isn't having an affair, James said without preamble. It's worse than that. Or better. I honestly can't tell yet. Nelson's head spun. What are you talking about? Marcus Chun isn't your wife's boyfriend. He's her business partner in a tech startup. James pulled out incorporation documents. 2 years ago, they formed a new LLC, separate from her design business, Chun Design Labs. They've been developing an app. A design collaboration tool for remote teams. According to the business filings, it just got acquired by a major tech company. The deal closes in 30 days. Nelson stared at the documents. Acquired for how much? $12 million. The room tilted. $12 million. Your wife's share, after Chen's cut and early investors, is approximately $6.8 million. James let that sink in. But there's a problem. A big one. He pulled out another document, a loan agreement. 4 months ago, your wife took out a $400,000 business loan. The lender is a predatory outfit with terrible terms. And she used your house as collateral. She did what? There's a legal loophole in Washington state. Under certain circumstances, one spouse can encumber community property without the other's signature. Your wife exploited that loophole. Nelson felt like he might throw up. How did I not know about this? The loan documents were filed in the business name, not your personal names. Unless you were specifically looking, you wouldn't find it. James pulled out another page. But here's where it gets worse. This loan has a clawback provision. If it's not paid off by the time the acquisition closes, the lender can claim a percentage of the acquisition proceeds. We're talking potentially millions. I don't understand. If Christina's getting $6.8 million, why doesn't she just pay off the loan? Because of Washington's community property laws, James explained. You're entitled to half of anything acquired during the marriage. That means half of the acquisition proceeds, about $3.4 million, are legally yours. But the post-nup? Exactly. The post-nup would establish that her business assets are separate property. She'd keep the full $6.8 million, pay off the loan, and move forward. But James paused. The acquiring company did their due diligence. They discovered the community property issue and the predatory loan. They're threatening to walk away from the deal unless the ownership situation is crystal clear. So Christina needs me to sign the post-nup to save the acquisition. Yes. But Mr. Davis, here's the thing. If you sign that post-nup, you're not just giving up your share of the acquisition. You're also legally separating yourself from the debt. The $400,000 loan and its penalties? That becomes entirely her problem, not yours. Nelson's mind raced. She said if I don't sign, we could lose everything. She's right. If the acquisition falls through, you're both stuck with a $400,000 debt against your house. But if you do sign, she gets the money and the debt, and you get nothing. After 12 years of marriage, Nelson sat in silence. Christina hadn't been planning to leave him. She'd been trying to save them. But she'd done it all in secret, making decisions that affected both of them, without ever asking his input. And now she needed him to sign away millions to fix the mess she created. What would you do? Nelson asked quietly. James took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Honestly, I'd be angry. Your wife lied to you for 2 years, built a company behind your back, took out a massive loan against your house, and now needs you to bail her out by giving up your legal rights to millions of dollars. He paused. But she's also the mother of your children. And if this deal falls apart, you both lose everything. So the question isn't what I would do. It's what you can live with. Nelson drove home in a daze. $6.8 million. Christina had been sitting on a fortune, and he'd had no idea. All those late nights, those client meetings, those conferences, she'd been building something massive. Without him. The house was dark when he pulled into the driveway. Christina's Audi was there, but the lights were off. He found her sitting in the living room in the dark, her face illuminated by her phone screen. Christina. She jumped, dropping the phone. Nelson. I didn't hear you come in. He turned on a lamp and sat down. I know about the app. The acquisition. Marcus Chun. The loan. All of it. Christina's face crumpled. She started crying, deep, shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere primal. I'm so sorry. God, Nelson, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared. The words burst out of her. Do you remember 5 years ago? When I tried to start that online stationery business. I lost $30,000. Our savings. You were so angry, Nelson. You said I was reckless, that I didn't think things through. We fought for months. Nelson remembered. It had been a dark time in their marriage. So when Marcus approached me with this idea, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to disappoint you again if it failed. I thought I'd surprise you when it succeeded. But then it started taking off, and I needed capital to scale. VCs wanted too much equity. I found this lender who seemed legitimate, but I didn't read the terms carefully enough. She wiped her eyes. By the time I realized how bad the loan was, we were too deep. And then the acquisition offer came, and I thought it would solve everything. But the lawyers found the community property issue, and you needed me to sign away my rights to save the deal. I wasn't trying to cheat you. I was trying to protect you. If this deal falls apart, we're stuck with $400,000 in debt. We could lose the house, Nelson. Everything we've built. I thought if I could just separate the assets legally, I could pay off the loan, keep the house, and we'd be okay. Okay. Nelson's voice rose. Christina, you built a $7 million company without telling me. You made decisions about our house, our future, our family, without me. You treated me like a child who couldn't handle adult conversations. I know. Her voice was small. I know, and I'm sorry. I was wrong. About all of it. But Nelson, I need you to sign that post-nup. If you don't, we lose everything. The house, my business, the acquisition, all of it. Please. Nelson looked at his wife, the woman he'd married 12 years ago, young and hopeful and broke. The mother of his children. The person who'd shared his life for over a decade. And he saw someone he barely recognized. Someone who'd been so afraid of failure that she'd succeeded in secret. Someone who'd tried to protect him by excluding him entirely. No, he said quietly. Christina's face went white. What? I'm not signing the post-nup. Nelson, please. But I'm not going to let us lose everything either. He pulled out his phone and called James Rodriguez. James, it's Nelson Davis. Can you arrange a meeting tomorrow morning? I need to talk to my wife, her business partner, and their lawyers. All of us together. He hung up and looked at Christina. We're going to fix this. Together. The way we should have been doing it all along. The meeting was set for 9 a.m. in James Rodriguez's conference room. Christina arrived first, nervous and pale. Marcus Chun came 10 minutes later, younger than Nelson expected, mid-30s, with the intense energy of someone who lived and breathed tech startups. Christina's lawyer, a sharp woman named Linda Morrison, completed the group. James laid out documents on the conference table. Let's be clear about what we're dealing with. The acquisition closes in 3 weeks. If the community property issue isn't resolved by then, the deal falls through. Mrs. Davis has proposed a post-nuptial agreement, which Mr. Davis has declined to sign. We're here to find an alternative solution. There is no alternative, Linda said. The post-nup is the only way to establish clear ownership before closing. Actually, Nelson said, there's another way. We pay off the loan before closing. Christina shook her head. Nelson, we don't have $400,000. No, but I do. Everyone turned to stare at him. My father passed away 8 years ago. He left me a trust fund, $150,000. I've never touched it. My 401k has another $180,000. I can borrow against my life insurance for the rest. Combined with whatever business savings you have, Christina, we can pay off the predatory loan completely. Once it's paid, the collateral issue disappears. The title is clean. The acquisition can proceed without the post-nup. You drain your entire retirement. Christina whispered. For me? After what I did? Not for you. For us. For Sophia and Marcus. For the marriage we're supposed to have. He turned to Marcus Chun. But you're in this too. You benefit from the acquisition. What are you contributing? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I can put in $100,000. And I'll reduce my share of the proceeds to pay Nelson back over time. With interest. James was already drafting notes. We can structure this as a loan agreement. Mr. Davis provides capital to pay off the business debt. Mrs. Davis and Mr. Chin repay him from acquisition proceeds, with interest over an agreed timeline. The business debt is satisfied. The acquisition closes cleanly. No post-nup needed. Linda leaned forward. This could actually work. Mr. Davis, you understand you're taking a massive financial risk? If something goes wrong with the acquisition, you could lose everything. If something goes wrong with the acquisition, we lose everything anyway, Nelson said. At least this way, we face it together. Christina was crying again, but differently now. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you. No, Nelson agreed. You don't. But marriage isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. And I'm choosing to trust that somewhere under all the secrets and fear, you're still the woman I married. The one who's supposed to be my partner. I want to be, Christina said. God, Nelson, I want to be that person again. Then start being honest. With me. With yourself. Starting now. Over the next 2 hours, they hammered out an agreement. Nelson would liquidate his trust fund and take loans against his retirement accounts. Christina would contribute her remaining business savings. Marcus would add his $100,000. Together, they'd pay off the predatory loan within the week. In exchange, Christina and Marcus would repay Nelson $200,000 over the next 3 years, essentially double his investment. The remaining acquisition proceeds would be Christina's, but she'd maintain full transparency about all business dealings going forward. James drew up the contracts. Linda reviewed them. Everyone signed. As they left the conference room, Marcus pulled Nelson aside. I need you to know there was never anything between Christina and me. Just business. But I pushed her to keep things quiet. I thought secrecy was strategic. I was wrong. Yeah, Nelson said. You were. I'm sorry. For what it's worth. Nelson nodded and walked away. He had nothing else to say to Marcus Chun. 3 weeks later, the acquisition closed. Christina's share of the proceeds, minus the loan repayment, came to $6.4 million. She immediately paid Nelson the first installment, $200,000. She paid off their mortgage, another $300,000. The rest went into investments and college funds for the kids. Nelson's retirement accounts were slowly being rebuilt. His trust fund was gone, but he'd gained something more valuable, clarity. They were in counseling now, twice a week. Christina was learning to communicate. Nelson was learning to create space for failure. They were both learning what partnership actually meant. One evening 6 months after the acquisition, Nelson came home to find Christina at the kitchen table with her laptop, surrounded by papers. Working late? He asked. Actually, I wanted to show you something. She turned the laptop to face him. I have an idea for a new app. Educational tool for graphic design students. But before I do anything, I wanted to talk to you about it. Get your input. Maybe even. She hesitated. Maybe partner with me on it. You're good at marketing. I'm good at design. We could actually build something together this time. Nelson sat down beside her. Tell me about it. She did. They talked for 2 hours, sketching ideas, debating features, planning strategy. It felt like the early days of their marriage, when they'd stayed up late dreaming about the future. One condition, Nelson said finally. Anything. Full transparency. Every decision, every dollar, every risk, we discuss it. Together. No more secrets. Christina took his hand. No more secrets. I promise. 2 years after the post-nup crisis, Nelson and Christina sat in their financial advisor's office, reviewing their portfolio. The educational app had launched successfully and was generating steady revenue. Christina's original design business continued to thrive. Nelson had been promoted to VP of Marketing at his firm, with a substantial raise. Their retirement accounts were healthy. The kids' college funds were fully funded. They'd sold the big house in Kirkland and bought a smaller one in Ballard, less to maintain, closer to the city, more room in the budget for family experiences instead of property taxes. You two are doing remarkably well, the advisor said, especially considering where you were 2 years ago. In the car afterward, Christina said, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd signed that post-nup?" "Sometimes," Nelson admitted. "I'd have signed away millions. But I also would have signed away any chance of fixing our marriage. Why did you choose to trust me? After everything I did?" Nelson thought about it. "I didn't trust you. Not then. I trusted that we'd built something worth fighting for. And I trusted that you could become someone worth trusting again. Have I?" He looked at her, really looked. She'd changed. They both had. The secrecy was gone. The fear of failure had been replaced by a different kind of courage. The courage to be honest, even when it was hard. "You're getting there," he said. "We both are." That night, putting Sophia to bed, his daughter asked, "Dad, why did Mom ask you to sign that paper 2 years ago?" Nelson had told the kids an age-appropriate version of the story. They knew their parents had had a big disagreement about business and money, and that they'd worked through it together. "Mom was scared," Nelson said honestly. "She made some mistakes because she was afraid of making mistakes. Does that make sense?" Sophia frowned, thinking, "So being scared of messing up made her mess up?" "Exactly. That's dumb." Nelson laughed. "Yeah, it kind of is. But grown-ups do dumb things sometimes. The important part is what you do after. Did you guys fix it?" "We're still fixing it. Every day." Later, after the kids were asleep, Nelson and Christina sat together reviewing their new business plan. They'd been working on it for months, a joint venture, truly equal this time. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Christina asked. "After everything that happened with the app, I'd understand if you never wanted to be in business with me." "The app wasn't the problem," Nelson said. "The secrets were. And we don't do that anymore." "No," Christina agreed. "We don't." She showed him the updated financial projections. They looked good. Risky but good. "What do you think?" she asked. Nelson studied the numbers, thought about the lessons they'd learned, considered the partnership they'd rebuilt from ruins. "I think we should do it. Together." Christina smiled. The real smile he'd fallen in love with years ago, before success and fear had complicated everything. Together. And this time, they meant it. 5 years after the post-nup that was never signed. Nelson Davis teaches a business ethics class at the local community college. He tells his students a story about trust, transparency, and what happens when fear drives decisions. He never uses names, but Christina sits in the back row sometimes. Listening to him turn their near disaster into lessons for others. Their business, the one they built together, is thriving. More importantly, their marriage is thriving. Not because they never fight or disagree, but because they've learned that partnership isn't about protecting yourself from your partner. It's about building something strong enough that you don't need protection. And that, Nelson has learned, is worth more than any acquisition, any fortune, any post-nuptial agreement could ever be. The best investment he ever made wasn't in his wife's business. It was in the belief that people can change, that fear can be overcome, and that trust, once broken, can be rebuilt. One honest conversation at a time.